Good afternoon, everybody. I was expecting a much brighter afternoon. All right, that's much better. I know that it's late. In fact, we have a very, very big topic and a little bit of time to discuss it. We even will have to try and wrap up a little earlier than we have on the program. So I'm going to ask you to, just bear with us as we try to get through this. But the question really is, can our health and wellness tourism products survive COVID-19 protocols? And here to discuss this topic, Mr. Kyle Mays, who is, you may have heard before, is the General Manager of Jamaica Inn. And we also have here Dr. Aisha Jones. She is a lecturer and consultant at the University of the West Indies. As a matter of fact, she has a specific focus on product and service development and capacity building for health and wellness. So she is quite ready to speak about this issue. We also have Professor Winston Davidson, who is at the University of Technology. We know him very well in public health. And as a matter of fact, he also has under his belt the whole thing of health and technology. And he's the head of those units at the University of the West Indies. Welcome to all the panelists. I'm going to try and do very little of the talking and allow the panelists. I'm hoping they can deliver in time. But I just want to say before we start that when COVID-19 struck earlier, one of the first things I did, I stopped going to the barber. I didn't go to the barber for several months. Then I was doing a series of physiotherapy. And I stopped going to physiotherapy because I said, boy, I'm not sure about this COVID thing. And then this nice word came about, protocols. And then all these protocols came about, and so we found out that there were ways around getting all these things done. Now, I believe it's the same thing to health and wellness, because we know that not everything in health and wellness can be obtained virtually. It is very
hands-on.
Very hands-on. And so persons may have some fears. Is it okay to do this in this time, or do I put it off until some other time? And while that is happening, how will it impact the industry? How will our learning continue? How will that rich experience of health and wellness continue? So these are the questions we have to answer, and I hope that you jot down your answers on your notepads, because at the end of the discussion, I would want to hear if you had similar answers to the question. And I believe I would want to begin with Dr. Jones to talk to us about this topic. Can our health and wellness products survive COVID-19 protocols?
Thank you very much, Dr. Spencer. It's interesting you mentioned that once COVID hit, one of the services you decided to no longer engage was to go to the barber. Similar with, I haven't been to the barber. I also have a low haircut. I haven't been to the barber since COVID has hit. I just decided to cut my hair myself.
Oh.
Because of that fear, right?
I need to learn your skills.
You need to learn my skills, right? And spas is one of the key health and wellness tourism products within this country. And the challenge that barbers, which are oftentimes subcontractors within the spa sector, face is, one, it's hit by the reduction in travel, and two, it is also hit by the fear of consumers, because spa services do depend on touch. They do depend on healing through physical or close contact. And it's really almost the antithesis of what the public health community is advising us to do. Keep our distance, we avoid touch. So hence all the services in and around the spa sector have suffered significantly. In fact, if you can skip a few slides further, the International Spa Association actually did some research on this very matter. To understand how the consumers around the world are responding to travel and to spa services. And they recognized that 19% of people, when asked if they'd be nervous about taking a flight, said they're not nervous at all. So for an island, a destination like Jamaica, this is probably a good thing. At least 90% of people will still travel. But about 43% of respondents said they're a little nervous. And then another 38% said, I'm definitely very nervous about travel. When you look at spas, you see a similar kind of dynamic. About 28% of people are not nervous about going to the spa, going to the hairdresser, getting their haircuts, getting their nails done. About 47% are a little nervous, and about 25% are very nervous. So the majority of the customers of spa services and related services are uncomfortable about going back to the spa once coronavirus is settled. But notwithstanding, 80% of those respondents said that they're willing and ready to spend just as much or even more on travel and spa services once coronavirus has been dealt with. So the question of whether the spa sector can survive the COVID-19 protocol, the real answer is it has no choice. It has to survive, because the fact is that consumers want the services. Despite what has happened with the pandemic, they still want the services. So the Health and Wellness Linkages Committee under the Tourism Linkages Network, under TEF, has invested in assisting spas to enhance their capacity of implementing sector-specific protocols for their spas. So there will be a series of guidelines that I'm working on with Tourism Enhancement Fund that really help to reduce the risk of transmission or the risk of contagion. And it really is designed to help to support the internal policies that spas are already, whether through direction from, if you're a spa that's part of a big hotel or a chain of hotels, they already have some protocols in place. But there are also smaller spas that, are not sure, what's the next step, what's the best step, what's the scientific basis on which I should make decisions in operating my spa safely. So this manual that is being developed will help to answer those very questions. And to just kind of quickly go through what areas will actually be covered. We'll be looking on, can skip right ahead, we're looking on the legislative, the kind of legislative agenda that dictates what is legal for a spa to do and not do as it tries to offer services. We'll also be looking at some of the international and national guidelines that exist. So the Ministry of Health and Wellness has some existing guidelines that covers many different workplaces, which includes it, and it explicitly references spas as a workplace and a set of protocols. So what are those protocols that are specifically relevant? What are the protocols set by the Ministry of Tourism for the tourism sector by and large, and what are the specific details for spas that need to be adhered to? And then the International Spa Association, of which Jamaica is a member and a beneficiary, also has some very important tools that can also assist. So we look and pull on some of those areas as well. Human resources. I remember going to the tax office, it's not a spa, but I remember going to the tax office. I couldn't avoid the tax office. Went, and I was so frightened, right? Because it was very crowded, and, I said, boy, what's up? And I'm in my head, just as was mentioned before, in my head kind of complaining. This place is so crowded.
All those breathing techniques.
Right, and I wasn't using any of those breathing techniques. And then by the time, when I finally got through and went to the customer service rep, it just kind of crossed my mind, what have I been complaining about? Because every day she has to come and deal with hundreds of people from all over the world just to earn. What am I complaining about? And I said to her, are you afraid? And she said, yes, but I have to come to work. And in our consultations with hotel managers and spa therapists, that's the number one issue they have, is that their therapists are afraid. But they have to do it because they believe they have a contribution to make, and they also have to earn an income. So we look at the role of managing a spa as it relates to the human resources policies, compensation, leave policies, employee wellness programs, training is what we will also look at. We'll be looking at at the role of personal protective equipment. So your masks, your gloves, your face shields, and also your uniforms. In spas in particular, uniforms are becoming a very important part of the protective personal equipment. The facilities, what is now required of your facility to ensure that you can maintain physical distance within a spa, to ensure that you can reduce the amount of touching that is required as people come in and out of the spa. So we'll be looking at the facilities as well as a part of the manual. Reservations. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says spas need to move to a booking-only policy to managing client inflow. So that is important. And even while booking, there's certain information that you need to get from your potential clients. You know, we call this pre-arrival consultations. You need to find out if they have had any exposure over the past 14 days. Are they having any symptoms? How do you manage these kind of personal, medical-related questions as well? So the manual goes into several different areas in quite some details and helps to empower, right? So we said surviving COVID protocols. They're very strict, they're very sudden, but through providing the information and helping spas to grow even during this pandemic and help to communicate that they're safe, but they're also maintaining the quality of service that is expected of a health and wellness spa within the tourism sector is really the main objective of this particular program. So in terms of your involvement, if you are a part of this, the health and wellness tourism community or the spa community, we are inviting you to visit wellnessinja.com. A draft of the manual will be on the website that you can download, review, and provide feedback. Additionally, if you are part of the Tourism Enhancement Fund's email listing, you'll also probably get a copy. And we're inviting you to give feedback. Let us know, is this applicable in your particular setting? You know, is there anything that we're overlooking? Are there areas that you do not agree with? And let us work on achieving some consensus, because we know there is a lot to take in, and we know that public health officials and those in practice sometimes are at odds, particularly when it comes to specific treatment options. So we're really looking forward to your feedback, to your contribution, and we will survive the COVID protocols. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Jones. Very interesting indeed. Very, very, very good start. Listening to here, and I think Mr. Mace, who will be speaking right after, don't know if he will help us a little. How do we solve that equation of having to acquire all these PPEs at a cost, of course, and the fact that the patronage has been declining, yes, whether through domestic tourism or international travel, and also the fact that there are still many persons who believe that, look, I think I can leave some of these things until after COVID, because many of us believe after COVID is soon. So looking forward to hear some of that. Mr. Mace, is over to you.
Thank you, David. I think I do have a PowerPoint to be asked to be brought up, just to take us through some of the points that affecting us from the hotel side of the industry. In the meantime, so, you know, it was March when effectively the tourism world, the hospitality, the hotel world was brought to its knees. And you know, if you see if you go back to the beginning slide, I like to say it, you know, it's no longer as the world turns. It's now all about how the world pivots. I think that's probably the number one word used for businesses nowadays. How do we pivot? How do we adapt to all these new protocols? So it's a very poignant area that we need to discuss. So yes, March came along, and you know, we spent many months putting in protocols in place We were, getting our properties ready to open safely, but still there's a lot of apprehension out there to travel because of a straight health concern or nervousness. You have quarantines, you have countries locking down, you don't know if a border is going to be open or not. So there is a lot of barriers to travel that we have been having to deal with over the last few months. So along comes with that, and if we just back up a minute from me to the previous slide, there's a term, I'm not sure if I can claim coining it, but to me it sounds quite correct, and that's that we're all starting to suffer post-COVID stress disorder, PCSD. and I think a lot of our travelers, a lot of our past visitors are actually experiencing this. Because the world and travel as we know it has changed. In fact, we've all changed. There's no going back to what it was prior, As you said, it's here. We have to learn to deal with it. So from a hotel point of view, we opened slowly. We see some gaining in occupancy and folks venturing out, but certainly not sustainable. So we went and we started talking to all our partners, our PR companies, and so we had to do something about the fact that we're not getting the same type of customer any longer, and which customer, who are we going to get to patronize our resorts? There were 6 top trends that came out of that, and the first being wellness tourism. And of course, one of the reasons we're here today, which for centuries has been seen as a getaway for personal betterment, from accessing the healing powers of the spas to signing up for yoga retreats. And nearly, you had to nearly prime me out of the chair after Sharon's presentation. But we're going to dive into that aspect of wellness a little bit more. Then came along, you see the authentic tourism, which basically visitors don't want to have identity kit resorts, so everything being the same, there's the big boxes, which are disconnected and sterile. They want to immerse themselves in the destination itself and experience something real in the destination. Then you have mindfulness, again, something you're going to hear more about in actually the wellness space, which is really about forging deeper connections with the places you visit and the people, and traveling with an attitude that less is more. So that is an interesting concept that we need to look at. Wilderness tourism, after months of cabin fever, everybody locked down, can't travel. There's a universal hunger for just simply wide open spaces, a lot of green, a lot of, you can go on retreats now where all you're doing is standing in a forest, and then that's a treatment, eh? So these are the type of things that are coming up. You have nomadic tourism, point-to-point holidays. So, people are wanting to travel not only to single locations and then return home, but they want to emerge in trips that take them to multiple locations and at a slower pace, and are much more about the journey than actually the destination. And last but not least, ecotourism. And we hear a lot about that in Jamaica. We already know exactly what that is, but it's a responsible travel. It's going to natural areas that conserve the environment and sustain the well-being of the people and also the actual product, and maybe some education is a part of that. So in those few that I highlighted, you see there's a lot of opportunities for Jamaica there, just naturally with the space and all the beauty that we offer in this land. But we're going to focus on, and we're here to talk about some wellness tourism. And as mentioned earlier, we've heard that it is not a new phenomenon, but COVID-19 outbreak has provoked health and wellness tourism to be actually so much more important for all of us. Travelers are much more conscious and thinking about their health, just to make sure we all know what we're talking about when we talk about wellness tourism. And the Global Wellness Institute describe it as encompassing businesses whose primary aim is to help us along the mental wellness pathways of growth, nourishment, rest, and rejuvenation. And again, you could feel it for yourself just in a brief few minutes there. So let's move on to the next slide. I want to talk about just how large is this. So, what is it all about? Why are we so excited possibly about it, and why are we spending time talking about it? Well, the wellness tourism is actually the powerful intersection of two large industries and growing industries. One we know very well, our tourism industry, which is a $2.6 trillion industry. The minister loves that figure, and maybe it's a little bit more now, I hope. But also a much larger industry, $4.2 trillion wellness industry. So you always think, well, tourism is big. So not quite so. The wellness it's huge. Okay, so what we want to do now is how to find our niche in there, and the GWI have claimed and are reporting that wellness tourism alone will be worth $919 billion on its own in 2022, which is representing 18% of global tourism. I mean, so we're talking big business here and to capitalize on it. So let's talk a little bit more about the wellness space, wellness economy, and there's much more. It's very deep. We know about spas. We know about those spaces. We know about sensory, and we know about the fact that we want to help the mind, the body improve. So we have also the brain boosting botanicals and nutraceuticals, which are really nowadays the supplement business, the herbals, the botanicals, and foods that help us to function better. And in there too, by the way, is the plant-based drugs, which is very exciting for Jamaica, which is increasingly now being used for mental wellness, which is the legal cannabis and its derivatives, which are exploding, and the whole hemp and CBD, which is making its way now into many supplements. So again, very big opportunities here for Jamaica. Self-improvement, we know this is where we're going on retreats, and we're visiting gurus and our teachers and Sharon and influencers, which also plays a big part of it. And then finally, meditation and mindfulness. So there is a lot to this industry that we need to consider. Who are the travelers? Who are these wellness travelers? Well, they're sometimes very misunderstood, because there's a common misconception that the wellness travelers are a small elite and just mainly wealthy group of leisure tourists who visit destinations just for the spa or the health resort or the yoga. But in fact, wellness travelers comprise a much broader and diverse group of consumers, and with many motivations, interests, and values, all about going out and seeing the local communities and putting money back into the local economies. So it is a very important sector, and travel and demography. So I know the director also likes to mention how important they are. So after saying all of that, where are we? What does the future hold for wellness tourism? Will it survive? Well, in general, this recovery all of us are going through, certainly in the hospitality industry, is certainly not going to. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. It's going to be a slow, very tedious, very painstaking recovery. The vaccine. It's not necessarily a silver bullet, by the way. Certainly not in the short or medium term. So we have to live with all the protocols. We have to find a way to make sure they work, keep them working. They have been working, and so we want we want to continue on that path. We have to pivot though, so we have to look at all these opportunities that I mentioned earlier, in Jamaica especially, where travelers are more conscious and so on. And so we should position the wellness services as not so much, back in the day it was all indulgence, right? We're going to go and treat ourselves to a spa, but no, it's a necessity. And that's how we need to start looking at it. Travelers will be prioritizing fitness, stress relief, and therapeutic treatments. And it's a good time for Jamaica to emphasize the scientific credentials of our wellness offerings, our bath, our different spa, natural springs, and so on and so forth. More opportunity again. So where we question, does health and wellness have a future? Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's more than that. I think that we have to be hugely optimistic about this space. The opportunities to reduce also, and Director Minister will be excited to think about that. It might replace this seasonality we have in Jamaica, the winter season. It's all about the winter season. Well, it can help spread because of what we're offering throughout the year and all the different activities. It helps spread the visitor flow. It may even help us mitigate in some places that there's mass tourism taking place. So again, it can help because you're spreading out now into the communities, rural areas, because of the mentality, the ocean blue traveler. They want a completely different experience, and so the trickle down effect now it's huge for these areas again. The wellness tourism and there's a bigger inclusion in the entire all of that wellness economy I mentioned earlier. And so in closing, really, and you see, sorry, my wonderful pictures there make it difficult to read, but I think that the COVID-19 pandemic is giving Jamaica travel industry a chance to rebuild itself. We have to take a long, hard look at ourselves because we have to be more ethical, more considerate. We have to be more regenerative in the way that we do things and the way that we look after the planet and its people. So to answer the question, I think that for many of the small operators like ourselves, this health and wellness travel and tourism may potentially save our businesses. And I'll end with that.
Thank you very much, Kyle. And to maximize the time we have left, I'm going to move very quickly over to Professor Davidson to give us his views. Can our health and wellness products survive COVID-19 protocols?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And so therefore, can I have the first slide, please? Is there a problem with the first slide, or do you wish me to put up my slide, to share my screen and show the slide? If you wish me to do that, I could also do that.
While we're ironing out the technical difficulties, let me just stick this one in while I have a minute to let you know that the Milk River Hotel and Spa is an agency of the Ministry of Tourism. It is still open for business. And it has radioactive water, which ranks in the top 10 in the world. So you can't not utilize that wonderful product. Also, Bath in St. Thomas, that one has thermal water, and it also is very excellent. Also a ministry, an agency of the Ministry of Tourism. So there we have natural resources that are really there for us. We must utilize them.
And I wonder how many visitors, how many potential visitors actually know about these wonderful places. You know, when you look at a map of of the world, and where, and I did look at one recently, and what each area has to offer. And you hear about Iceland and what their springs and Mexico, but Jamaica, it doesn't pop up with all these wonderful, you know, we're not known for our Tulum, Mexico. This is where or down in South America, there everybody goes there for these retreats. We have retreats, we have wonderful retreats, but nobody really, we're not on the map.
We don't talk about them as
We're
much.
not on the map.
And that is what this is all about, the sessions like these, to really help us to realize that we do have a significant number of products here in Jamaica.
Absolutely.
And so we will be talking much more about them in the very near future. Are we ready with Dr. Prof. Slides now? Yes, they are. Go right ahead, Prof.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see if I can see the slide. It's not projecting to me. Let me see exactly. Okay, if it's not projecting to me right now, then I will do an alternative and go to my slides. The first slide, of course, has to do with answering the question, what is health and wellness tourism? Because I think that we need to define what we mean by that in order for us to really understand the question itself. Health tourism, as I define it, is essentially the practice of traveling to a tourist destination with the main purpose of receiving health care. Now, based on analysis over the past 20 to 25 years, there are three fundamental institutional global market segments. First is wellness, health tourism, which is usually hospital-based. The second is medical health tourism, which is the first is wellness health tourism.
Hotel-based, yes.
Hotel. The second is medical health tourism, which is hospital-based. And the third is retirement village health tourism, which is a convalescent home-based. All three market segments are multi-trillion-dollar segments. I mean, I'm more familiar, of course, with wellness within the context of the medical perspective, and of course the retirement village. Now, I can tell you that for health tourism, the scope of wellness is extremely large. And we usually define it as having about 5 pillars. The first pillar is nutrition. In other words, good nutrition.
We lost Doctor.
Have we lost him? We've lost him. Don't know if we can try to get him back, but while they are trying, we continue the discussion about health and wellness tourism products. And what I think this session and the ones that preceded really has opened our eyes to is that there are several more health and wellness products than we considered to be health and wellness products. And I think the first step is for even more persons to be acquainted with all these products. But the specific question, as we said, it's a very interactive type of the product itself, to consume it. And as a result, we believe that those products may have been more severely affected by the impact of COVID-19. And hence the reason the question is being asked, can it really survive these COVID-19 protocols? And we are hearing all the speakers already saying, yes, it can. But the question is, with all the other factors, cost-related ones, and the fact that this business relies mainly on tourist arrival, and the fact that that has slowed down, that is also part of the question. Not just to stick to the protocols, but the fact that business is slow. Persons have become unemployed. Can they survive? Yeah. Don't know if anyone wants to chime into that.
Yeah, so,
I don't mind.
all right. Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, and maybe it's serendipitous, but the tourism linkages network is gonna be the vision of linking tourism to other sectors is gonna be very critical in the approach. So even though tourism itself, you know, in kind of the traditional sense, has suffered significantly from the pandemic, what you will find is that there are other industries that are going to see a phenomenal swell. Look at the pharmaceutical industry, for example, right? Science in and of itself will explode as a result of increased reliance and recognition on the importance of science in the way we treat our different problems. As the pharmaceutical industry expands,
You can just finish your point.
as the pharmaceutical industry expands, the wellness industry will also expand. There will be greater investment in wellness and all the offshoots of that, including tourism. So when we talk, for example, about the cannabis industry, which I'm very aware of, there has been a hit, but they're just standing and waiting because the investment is going to come in. How can Jamaica, as
Capitalize
Mr.
on all of that.
Capitalize on that as a tourism product, recognizing that these linked areas of the sector will see growth? And I do think that kind of approach or strategy has to be front and center of tourism strategy moving
All right,
forward.
thank you very much. So Dr. Prof. Davidson, you are back on IC. So we will ask you to continue your presentation.
Okay, so on the question of wellness, health, tourism, there are 5 fundamental pillars. And each one of these pillars I'm talking about is a multi-billion-dollar business. The nutrition, good nutrition, a whole host of business opportunities exist around that paradigm. Secondly is physical exercise. That, again, is a massive industry, including the recreational industry, including a number of other things. The third pillar is, of course, managing stress. The whole question of the utilization of wide variety of culture-bound modalities, and of course, also the wide range of professionals who are related to that industry. Fourth, restful sleep. Restful sleep. This is a situation which is extremely important, especially in relation to the pandemic that we have in the world now, known as a non-communicable disease pandemic, which is costing billions of dollars, and which there are no silver bullets. There's no immunization for non-communicable diseases. And so therefore, you have to manage it on a case-by-case basis, which is extremely difficult and extremely expensive. And 5, the fifth one, of course, has to do with the environment and all the features of the environment, because the environments feed back into these 4 pillars, right, in relation to environmental degradation, the impact of environment on health, the impact of environment on wellness, and of course, climate change. And now, as we ask, the next question is public health and the national economy. The tourism industry is sustainable. The tourism industry's sustainability is inextricably linked to the standards of public health regulations and practice. Let's take Jamaica, for example. In 1981, the IMF policy to close the School of Public Health and the training of public health professionals led to deteriorating public health conditions of water quality and sewage disposal. Contamination of pristine beaches with sewage became evident, and a poliomyelitis, which is a fecal-oral transmitted disease outbreak in 1983 took place after 31 years of eradicating the disease. And of course, we are constantly threatened by the cholera epidemic the risk of cholera epidemic coming from Haiti, right? And so you know that all of these conditions can lead to closure of the hotel industry. So a national mass immunization program saved the day in relation to that outbreak, which started in Montego Bay. And so COVID basic public health protocols will become standard practice, right? As the threat of new pandemics are real, and we have a number of pandemics that are incubating. For example, there's one in Bolivia that I'm not going to, but all over the world because of the fact of a number of factors. One of these factors, of course, has to do with the factor of climate change, people extend of human ecosystem extending into the ecosystem of the other animals and plants, and as a result of which we get viruses that are extremely toxic, life-threatening to human beings, jumping from animal to animal into animal to human and human to human. That is how we got the COVID infection. And so therefore, the survival of wellness health tourism will not be determined ultimately by the COVID pandemic, right? All cases of pandemics throughout human history have passed and the diseases have been eradicated. And so therefore, COVID is by no means the be-all and end-all of this. This COVID pandemic is no exception, and it too shall pass and be eradicated in keeping with all the other pandemics of the past. The more important questions, however, is whether the disastrous economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic will damage wellness tourism to the extent that the cost of recovery in the industry will outweigh the benefits or the economic viability of the industry. And so therefore, those are fundamental questions which I suppose we can take up when we have our discussions. The interdependence of these three market segments, that is wellness tourism located in the hotel space, medical tourism located in the hospital and ambulatory care space, and of course retirement village tourism located in the convalescent home space, right? Makes us clear that in fact I use a phrase. I coined a phrase sometime in 1997 during my research that a hotel is a hospital, a therapeutic center for well persons, whereas a hospital, a therapeutic center, is a hotel for ill persons. And therefore you'll be able to see the continuum between wellness and between the hospital space. And now integrating the value chains of these three massive market segments to enable cost saving and economic synergistic growth will be the most important government policy decision. This policy will ensure the building of health tourism resilience and the capacity in anticipation of the next and inevitable public health crisis. We will continue to have public health crises. You don't think, I mean, because movement of people, of changes in the environment, and also of the encroachment on ecosystems that in fact are toxic. So in the final analysis, what I've done is our approach in order to build resilience, right, and to anticipate the impact of further situations like, for example, COVID, etc., is that an all-inclusive integrated health tourism Jamaican model is best practice. And this integrates not only wellness, integrates wellness health tourism with medical health tourism, and of course, with retirement village or convalescent home tourism. And so we finally, because I usually like to maintain my strict adherence to time. Finally,
right,
public health protocols, right? The essence of public health protocol is related to the following: personal hygiene, protection, in other words, against risks. The use of masks is that. Social distancing. These are long established scientific methods for the control of communicable disease, these of man-to-man transmission, human-to-human transmission, right, by droplet infection or by other means, right? And the protocols used by COVID will become standard procedures as the risk of human-to-human spread pandemics are expected to become more prevalent as a result of the environmental change and climate changes, resulting in the spread of zoonotic infections, jumping to human-to-human transmission of deadly diseases in the future. And that, I think, gives a sort of conceptual framework for further questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Winston Davidson, Dr. Aisha Jones, and Kyle Mays. Thank you very much. I really anticipated that we would have had a lively discussion on this topic, but clearly we have exhausted the time and we are not able to accommodate further discussion. So we want to thank our panelists and thank you all for listening to the discussion. We hope that the slides and the notes from the discussion will be helpful to you, and you will have the opportunity to raise questions to our panelists when you see them. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.